Hello there,
Hi,
and welcome to our channel. This is Alice,
and this is Kai.
and today we're going to be taking a look at why is the Deep South so different? I have no idea.
No,
I think there's a few things actually. So I think they're quite patriotic, they're very proud, and I think they're very, well, I guess it comes under proud, doesn't it?
Isn't that the entire US though?
I think
Maybe
some,
more so.
no, I think you're right, yes, but I think in the South it's bigger.
So.
Yeah, like it's more prominent, if that makes sense. And then, well, I don't know what else really.
I guess we'll
the accent, very thick accents in the South.
Some of our favorites, actually.
Probably the best accents in America. Let's be honest. Shall we have a look?
Let's have a look.
Let's have a look. There we go. World according to Brew.
Why is the South so much different than the rest of the United States? Every region and sub-region in the US has cultural differences and quirks that might be considered odd in other regions. The poster child for this, of course, is the Deep South: Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Other southern states have some of the same differences, they just have a little bit more in the Deep South. We ran a survey and asked what region is the most unique when you compare it to the other regions in the US. The South won by a landslide. In this video, we're going to explore what those differences are. Some of you will see some of these things in other regions, but they're probably not as big a deal as it is in the South, in the Deep South. When I was in college, I did a few papers on this subject, and I was heavy into cultural geography. After World War II and US presidents, the cultural difference...
What I mean by Forrest Gump is, you know, where he ran and his braces fell off. No, it doesn't literally look like Forrest Gump, but that scene, I loved how the trees were going as well. It's so cool.
Between the regions in the United States is what I've spent a majority of my time reading about over the years. I find this fascinating, always have. So in this video, we're going to take a look and find out why the Deep South is f***ing weird compared to the rest of the country. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look.
That was a lovely shot.
The history. The southern United States is a region that has interested both its own people and outsiders for a very long time. Its rich mix of culture, history, and values make it different from the rest of the country. One of the main reasons the South is so unique, its history, especially the times when there was slavery and eventually the Civil War. Before the Civil War, the southern states depended on growing crops like cotton on giant farms, and they used enslaved people to do the work. Big farms and plantations were the main source of revenue for the Deep South, and it was very profitable. I mean, when you don't have to pay your labor, anything's profitable, I guess. Even though slavery ended in the United States over 150 years ago, its effects are still seen on how different races interact and the Southern way of life. The Civil War. The Civil War, which for the most part was about slavery and state rights. Some people argue it's just about state rights. Well, okay, but you were enslaving human beings. A lot of people will argue that it was about state rights. It wasn't about slavery. No, they were trying to end slavery in the United States, which is 100% wrong, no matter how you explain it, so you don't have a right to do it. These days, not everyone sees things that way in the South, and I get that. But some do, and most of the United States finds that very strange. But back during the Civil War, it made Southerners feel proud that they were standing up for their state rights, at least how they saw it. A lot of that pride is still a thing in the southern states. Even today, things like the Confederate flag and statues of Confederate leaders bring up mixed feelings across the country, but they mean a lot to the people in the South. This history has shaped a strong sense of independence and a desire to keep Southern traditions alive. And when you know the backstory to that, as you meet a lot of Southern people, you could see where it's coming from now. You could tell that they have this big thing about independence and pride in their state or their region. The only place you'll find independence like that in the United States that's as strong as it is here are the western states where it was kind of frontierish, like Wyoming, Montana, and Nevada. You'd probably throw Idaho in there too, but I don't think it's as strong there.
I don't really know much about the Confederate flag, but I'm guessing it was around during the slavery times and things like that, so I guess it's probably got a bit of a tarnished history to it.
I'm not really sure, and I didn't really understand what he meant. Like, they thought that they were fighting for something else than they were?
Or so them, from my understanding, from what he was saying, the Civil War was about, obviously, state rights and slavery or something along those lines. Whereas
the southern states don't think that. They just think it was about the rights.
Well, I think they was just proud to have the rights, and
Yeah.
I guess I don't know enough about slavery in the US to really kind of. So I'm going to avoid.
I didn't really fully understand what he
meant.
meant.
No, I didn't either. But I'm not gonna.
No, not going back.
I'm just going to pass over that whole category.
It probably needs a lot more looking into.
I think
Southern
so.
drawl. Every region has their accent. Outside of Boston, there's probably no other accent that is as obvious and unique than the South. The Southern United States has a handful of different dialects, with the Deep South having two, really. The main one being Southern United States English. That's what they call it. You also have Cajun.
What?
There could be an argument, too, that New Orleans has their own. You also have Texas English, Appalachian English, Black Southern English. But what we're focusing on this one is the Southern drawl. This is a type of accent that has developed over hundreds of years, just like any accent does. But the foundation of the Southern drawl was set back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. The beginnings of this accent goes all the way back to around the mid 1700s, when wealthy British traders started to speak without the R sound in their words to show that they were from a higher social class. And you can hear that in Boston. It's a little watered down these days. I mean, the Boston accent isn't as thick as it once was, but you know, they say like the old jokes, park the car. There's no R. They kind of replace the R with an H. Instead of saying park the car, they say park the car. I'm horrible at accents, but you know what I'm talking about. Now, down in the South about the same time, things were a bit different. People from northern England who were not as rich and settled in the South, they continued to say the R sound. This is where the Southern drawl began. It was almost like a distinction between the common man and the rich people. The rich people used it to show status, and the poor people, in some cases, exaggerated it to show the distinction between the two. Now, it is important to note that there are different accents in the South that have a similar accent, but they don't say the R's. There's a few other tweaks to it, and there's some sayings, and there's some words that are used there that aren't used other places. Words like fixin', which is fixing, yonder, like over yonder. Doohickey is one too. Now, a lot of people use that all over the country, but that originates in the South. Doohickey. Give me some sugar, like give me a kiss or a hug or whatever, or some sort of affection. That's a Southern saying. Also, one I've always liked and I actually used, picked it up from my family that's from the South, is carry me. Like carry me to the store, carry me home. It's not literally carrying you, it's like give me a ride. Then, of course, outside the Deep South, you have like Texas with y'all. Quit being ugly, that's a Southern saying. Meaning quit being a pain in the butt. One of the absolute best things is when they use bless your heart. Now, I talked about this in other videos that
we use that a bit over here, though, don't we? Bless your heart. Just I don't know why, really.
Bless your heart is a nice thing to say to someone. Oh, bless your heart, you know. That's very common for Southerns to say, but they don't just use it as a sign of affection. They also use it as a little backhanded thing when they think you're dumb.
We do that as well, don't we? Because it's like if someone is doing something like what you would consider a bit silly. A bit daft, you'd be like, oh, bless his heart, he's a little bit special, isn't he? You know, it's something along those lines.
Sometimes, sometimes it's genuine. It depends on the
but I get that. I can see the backhanded sort of,
it's a bit
almost like, oh, bless his heart. He's too dumb to figure it out, but at least he's trying. That's what they kind of mean when they say bless your heart sometimes. One of those phrases that has many different uses. Sort of like the word dude in California, or the F word in New Jersey and New York. Also in the South, you have things like, say, a Coke. I'm going to get a Coke. To Southerners, this could be any carbonated drink. It doesn't have to be a Coke. You could have in your mind, you're going to get a 7-Up, but you're going to say, I'm going to go get a Coke. Plum is another good one. She's plum tired out. She was plum crazy. Means totally or absolutely. I had a conversation about this.
Really?
Interesting. Never heard that. No, we would use plum if, again, we would say something like, oh, he's being a bit dumb in this situation. Oh, don't be such a plum.
Yeah, I suppose, when he's being a bit of a plum.
He's being a bit of a plum.
We wouldn't, it doesn't, definitely different meanings.
This with a British guy that used to work for my brother years ago. And I was explaining that the South, sometimes you can't understand what they're talking about if you're from other parts of the country. He said they have that in England too. It's called Manchester. The economics.
I like how Americans say Manchester. Manchester.
Oh, they emphasize on the man.
Manchester.
Economically, the South's focus on farming played a big role in making it unique. Unlike the more industrialized North, the South's economy was based on crops and farming. This created a different way of sharing money and a social system where there were clear differences between landowners, farm workers, and enslaved people back in the day. This economic gap and the reliance on farming have influenced how the South does politics and how people act, setting it apart from the more industrial North. Obviously, the South is changing now. You've got Atlanta is a pretty serious tech spot with movies being made there all the time now. Florida has some things going on. It's a lot different than it used to be, but a lot of that carries over. It becomes part of their culture. People from outside the South see it, they think it's kind of strange. The South has a history of a simpler life. A lot of that has to do with that farming type lifestyle, where you work the land. That's how this...
I guess one way to consider it is they're not backwards as such, but you know, like how, say, you look at somewhere like New York, and it's like London, for example. It's like very progressive, it's up at the times, it's really buzzing, everything's got to be new, fresh, and go, go, go. Whereas if you take a step back and you go to somewhere a bit more rural, you know, like in the UK, somewhere like Cornwall or somewhere like that, where everyone's a little bit laid back, it's not so busy.
Yeah,
it's like sort of taking a step back in time a little bit, like you're sort of 5 years behind that progression, or 10. Like you're not, but you are in a way.
No,
like,
not
in
technically,
like a lifestyle,
but in the lifestyle and how people look at life and what's important in life.
I think that's a big thing as well. It's what you value as well, isn't it? Whereas sometimes
career, and I want the new car and the new phone. Whereas I think in some places,
it's
like that. It's like, I just want a healthy family, to have a house, and to maybe grow my crops and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, quite self-sufficient to an extent.
Depends what people want.
And I think also, like, your values, like family is probably a much bigger thing. Like, you know, there's like, everyone probably gets together a lot more frequently. Like, whereas, you know, in these other places, don't get me wrong, it does happen, but it's going to be less frequently because people are so busy on self-progression.
It's interesting.
It's a different way of life. I mean, for me, perfect place to live, you know, like to actually grow up, and great for kids and all that sort of stuff. But then I guess you could probably get stuck in that sort of thing where you feel like you're not progressing as well. Does that make sense?
Depends what you're doing, the right balance, depending on what sort of lifestyle you want. We kind of like the middle ground where we live somewhere like that. So we have the tranquility of our living situation, being away from the buzz, but we're near enough a big city.
You can get there if you need to.
If you need to, you have everything within 5-10 minutes drive or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's a balance for us.
It is,
region of the United States started out, and that's how they became what they are today. So sure, things have changed, but that mentality and culture will stick with them forever. Religion and a strong sense of being conservative have also helped make the southern states a little bit different. For a long time, the South has been known for its strong belief in evangelical Christianity, which really affects their lifestyle, like politics, values, and families. This has made the South more traditional and conservative on social matters, which is unlike the more open and diverse views of other parts of the country. Obviously, not everyone in the South is into religion, but more than any other part of the country, the percentages are higher here, especially in the Deep South. I mean, the Deep South is in the Bible Belt. The Bible Belt encompasses all the southern states, except for the southern tip of Texas and the southern tip of Florida, where all those immoral people are in Miami. So a lot of people from different parts of the country might find their devotion, or at least the amount of people that are into Christianity, a little odd compared to where they're from. I mean, not saying other states don't have religion. They're just a little, you know, I don't want to say feverish about it. They're just a little more into it than other parts of the country, and it's obvious.
I guess it means that area of the country where they are a bit more religious.
That's why I was kind of assuming that, to be fair, and I can kind of see it.
It's not a very nice term to it, I think.
No, I think the way he explained it wasn't very nice, but I think I can see that, you know, if you are kind of a little bit more, not isolated, but disconnected from, you know, the busy lifestyle, then you are going to be a bit more in your community. And I think that in that respect, religion could play a bigger part as well, because, you know, it's kind of...
And again, family. If stays grow up together, the values get you know, transferred to kids and grandkids and all of that, which...
Yeah, that's true. So it passes down. So, you know, religion, if your parents are really religious, then naturally you're going to
grow up listening, maybe going to church and being influenced in a way by your parents to at least try and, you know, believe in what they believe in.
I don't really want to get into it.
Again, we don't know enough about it.
It's like slavery. You just don't have the information to really discuss
talk about it. So we just...
Let's move on, shall we?
The Southern culture. The Southern culture is full of interesting things like food, music. The Southern culture has become famous all over the world, and that's how most people know about the South. It's through the music.
This is how we know about the South.
These things have played a big role in keeping the Southern traditions alive and strong, making the region even more unique compared to the rest of the country.
Mash, though.
Many
years
when the Berlin Wall came down and people started crossing just back, it was all over the news. This teenage guy, he might have been 20 or something, came across the border and they were interviewing people and they're all, how does this feel? He's all, it's great. I'm going to go to America. That's what first thing he said. They're all, why do you want to go to America? He barbecues, Leonard Skinner, jeans. I was just like, oh my God, this guy wants to make it to America so he could see Leonard Skinner. I don't even know if they were performing back then, but still, I was like, Leonard Skinner, the guy just comes from a communist country, gets a little freedom. He's like, I'm going to see Leonard Skinner. And in case you don't know, Leonard Skinner is probably one of the most successful bands to ever come out of Alabama. That band was like the founding fathers of Southern rock.
They did Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, okay. Definitely know the song.
I'm pretty sure they did that. So, and that would make sense if they come out of Alabama.
In my personal opinion, I think the music, more than anything else, has played a big part in letting the South be known outside the United States and North America. Think all the way back to B.B. King, Elvis, Marshall Tucker Band, Charlie Daniels Band from back in the day, John Lee Hooker, Wilson Pickett, Howlin' Wolf, and even the Allman Brothers from Jacksonville, Florida. The politics. In terms of politics, the South has usually leaned more towards conservative beliefs compared to other places in the country. The South, especially the Deep South, is considered very red, very Republican. It's like they could always count on winning the southern states, especially the Deep South. Last couple of elections, Georgia's been looking a little iffy, but the rest of the southern states are solid red states. It's like every election, you know they're going to win those, and you know the Democrats are going to win California.
The screen went black, and I was like, oh, what's happened to the recording? And then suddenly I just see this fist coming. I was like, oh, okay,
California, New York. The southern states have been supporting conservative Republicans for decades. They just seem to fit the political views and the priorities that the southern states want, for the most part. Whenever I say something like that, you always get a bunch of people going, well, I voted for the Democrats and I live in Mississippi. Whenever we talk about states, we're talking about averages. Everyone's different. You're always going to have some outliers. But for the most part, the South is very red. This is another strange thing that you'll find in the South and not as much in other parts of the country. People openly talk politics, and they complain about politics to complete strangers, just like it's normal small talk. Some parts of the country, you'll go, how about this day? Yeah, this weather's killing me. I can't stop sweating. That's how...
I would absolutely suck at that because I have no knowledge about American politics at all.
Yeah.
And Republicans and Democrats means nothing to me.
I guess obviously if we live there,
I suppose if you're in with the lingo and you understand the differences. I mean, even in the UK politics, I just avoid it. It's just hassle for me. Like, it's something I don't need to worry about because my little one vote is not going to do anything in the grand scheme of things.
Wow.
So if I just duck my head and just, pretend that I'm not here.
And if everyone thinks the way you do.
Yeah, it's a fair point, but then we might as well make like a WhatsApp group and then we'll all be like, right, guys, let's go. We're making one decision. Because otherwise, you're still one person.
A lot of conversations happen with people you don't know in public in most of the country. In the South, it's not terribly unusual to have a conversation with a complete stranger and they start off with these damn politicians. The country's going to hell in a handbasket, that type stuff. I've had a few people bring that up in the comment section when we've done things on southern states or southern cities. They'll say something like they moved to a southern state after living in Nevada most of their life, and they are surprised how openly aggressive these people are about politics and how casually they just discuss it. Most of the time, people try and avoid politics with total strangers. Not in the South. Years ago, I saw a YouTube video where the guy's interviewing people, southern people, they were living in a trailer, and this guy just starts going off about these damn politicians, giving handouts to everyone, and no one wants to work, and he's on a rant, and all of a sudden this woman's voice from inside was like, Charlie, what are you talking about? You've been on disability and Social Security for 10 years. He's all, but I need that. The way the cameraman pulled the camera away from him was just, it spoke volumes. He was just like, oh God. But politics are definitely a big difference in the South compared to other parts of the country. Sure, you have places in the Midwest that are Republican states, but they don't get into it as much as they do in the South, especially the Deep South. And I think a lot of that has to do with their distrust of the government. No other part of this country hates the government like the southern states do. And that feeling can be traced back to the Civil War and beyond.
I was going to say, actually, you can say that a little, like, there's a little bit of a resemblance there in the UK as well. And I feel like that's the North versus the South. Because I feel like the Northerners kind of don't like the Southerners. So I don't think the Southerners really dislike the Northerners, but I think the Northerners don't like the Southerners much because we're obviously where the government is and all the changes, and generally a lot of the changes are affecting the North more than the South, or the benefits don't necessarily work their way up the country so much. And I think that that's kind of, maybe that's what's happening here a little bit as well.
It was interesting though that the southern states, which have historically voted for the same sort of party, hate the government, because obviously that government has been in power at times. And yet they're still
maybe they just like to moan. I mean, like maybe
just like we do,
they've got a little bit of Brits in them.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You guys just like to moan, and so do we. We love it. You know, moaning. If you're not miserable, you're not happy, right? Let's continue.
That's Mr. here.
That is definitely me.
So, in conclusion, the southern United States stands out because of its mix of history, economy, society, and politics. Slavery and the Civil War, the focus on farming, strong religious beliefs, and conservative values have all made the South have its own identity. Even as the country has changed over time, the South has held on to a lot of its traditions and ways of life, making it a region that is special and interesting in the big picture of the United States.
I think that was an interesting little, oh my God, my hair's falling down. I think that was an interesting snippet on the South. I don't think that it really went into anything in too much detail.
No, I guess it can't.
I mean, there's a lot, right?
Short video, yeah.
But it was an interesting overview, wasn't it?
I think it was very interesting. And I quite like the fact that, you know, the South has kind of kept, to an extent, a lot of its traditions and things from the past. Yes, you do want to grow and you want to progress, but at the same time, you don't want to lose the sense of self that you have,
who they are,
and who you are, and part of your history. So I quite like that to an extent.
Yeah.
Bit of a tangent there.
Random. Anyway, if you made it this far, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye.